welcome to the Improv Summit. As always, I'm your host, Spencer. With me today, I have a very special guest. Now, I got in trouble for saying very special guest to every single one of my guests, so I've done the old improv game where you take the person's first name, take the first letter of that first name, and put an adjective in front of it. And for some reason, this letter always trips me up because it's hard to think of any words that start with this letter, and I do it on the fly. I actually improvise this in every intro, but today I'm excited to present to you Cowabunga with a K, Kevin, because we all know Cowabunga does not start with a K, but it does today. How's it going, Kevin?
It's going really well.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, for whatever reason, I always think of kangaroo, and I don't know why, because that's not an adjective.
That doesn't sound like an adjective, but I'm totally cool with Cowabunga. That's one of my favorite cool words.
Yeah, I love it. Cowabunga with a K, and it's now trademark TM on this show, so no one else can use it, unless you pay me royalties. Anyway, let's dive in and talk about you and your improv experience. So my first question I have is, what is your relationship to improv or your improv experience?
I've been doing improv for about 5 years now. For the first 2 years, I got trained exclusively at Comedy Sports here in Chicago. And I actually got into improv because I was at a board game kind of get-together group, and one of the people there was like, oh, here's a free class at Second City. Go ahead and give it a shot. Went in, tried it once, and got hooked forever. I went through the normal classes at Comedy Sports, and then I did their professional program for a year. And then I went and did some dramatic improv, and I joined up with a group called One Group Mind, and I got to do shows every other week for about a year. And then the group there disbanded because schedules and everything. And then in that time, I also started to coach a high school improv team, and that started organically because I told the kids what I was doing, and they were like, no, you don't. And I'm like, come to my classroom and I'll show you. And started with 2, and now I'm up to 16, and they're getting paid to do it.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. That being said, what do you love about improv? I know that's a big ask, but
I love the structure of it. Just the ability to go into something with nothing and be able to create something and make people feel something, because improv doesn't always have to be funny. That's something that dramatic improv really taught me, that as long as you're feeling something, that's what's important. It doesn't have to be laughs. It doesn't have to be chuckles. It can be gas. It can be like, oh my gosh, what just happened? It can be like really sad moments. And I really love that structure and the ability to create and the relationships you can build. And I also like it because it helped teach me social skills. If that, it sounds weird, I know, but improv has specific rules, unwritten rules, but those rules are a way to have conversations in everyday life if you use them in everyday life. And it helps you with social skills. It helps you with confidence for public speaking, the whole 9 yards. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's great. And also what's interesting that you bring up is the idea that improv is structured, because it feels like such an oxymoron in its own way. Because you think of improv as being something that's super loose and unstructured. And I think that sometimes is a bit of a terrifying thing for people in general, like with anxiety, is like, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with improv. But what I love about improv is that it has kind of both worlds, in the sense of, yeah, improv, you kind of say and do whatever you want, but there is a certain way in which to do it. There's a certain structure. Certain forms have a certain way in which you have to play. Comedy Sports has a specific type of play involved with the games and how it's all presented. Long form, short form, musical improv, two-prov, they all have their own specific elements that you, in theory, should follow. Once you're an expert at it, you can break those rules, as most people can in a lot of things. But that's what I love a lot about improv, is as someone who jumped into improv feeling very not confident in myself at all as a human, finding improv and realizing, it did wonders for my confidence in this weird way that I was not anticipating it would, but it did. And I think that's something that I love that you brought up, is the idea that improv has structure, even though it's not completely like sketched out, and it's not completely free where you're just like walking on stage and doing whatever. Sometimes you will, but there's going to be a structure to it, even if it's we're just going to do a montage, we're just going to freeform it. That's still a structure.
There's always a structure there, and there's always a pattern. And once you recognize the patterns in it, then you start recognizing the patterns in normal conversations, and it just becomes easier. Just recognizing, oh, you said this, I should say this, and having those kind of scripts in the back of your head is really helpful.
Yeah, I agree. On a side note, well, not a side note, it's just another segue, but I'm just not great at making segues happen. I can make segues appear on the show, but not in the way in which I'd like. But one thing that I don't get to talk a lot about on this show that I really am interested in is, as someone with partial blindness, I constantly think about the accessibility of improv and how I can, one, use my disability to my advantage for certain improv scenes, but also how I can adapt improv for my specific needs. Like I've learned with musical improv, I can never be on stage right because I will not see what's happening on stage left if people are doing choreography unless I'm directly looking at them. But if I'm on stage left, I can figure it out. But that being said, as far as disability in improv, are there, like, I'm not a fan of Zip Zap Zop. It's a lot of visual things that I don't like. But are there any games or any moments that you've noticed that have been adaptable or are very disability friendly, or anything that you've noticed as a coach or as a teacher in improv that, how do I want to phrase this? I think you know where I'm going, but like how improv can shape, how improv and disability kind of commingle, I guess, is where I'm at.
It's really interesting you say that, because I actually have I have autism, and I also have really high anxiety. So like going into something like this was terrifying for me, because A, I had very low social skills, and B, being in front of people terrified me.
And we've never met in person either.
Right. And it's really interesting the way that it turned out, because it helped with both of those things. But in coaching, the teams that I have, a lot of them come from a lot of different backgrounds. I've had students who didn't speak English, and I don't speak Spanish. I've had students who had really severe autism, where they need a lot of supports in like guiding, like this is what you say, and like coaching in the background. And it's really kind of fun in those situations, because I lean on the people that have those, like, what do you need? What would help you in this situation? What can I do to help you feel more comfortable here? And I've been coaching during COVID lockdown too. So I've been doing Zoom online, which was even more difficult, because a lot of the teams that I worked with weren't able to turn on their cameras because they were uncomfortable with being at home. They could only have their mics on for a very short amount of time. So again, I worked with them, and I'm like, what can we do to make this work? And we basically did like improv podcasts where you couldn't see them, but they were talking and they were having a good time, and like it was a blast. When I worked with students who spoke Spanish and I didn't speak English, I looked to the other teams. I'm like, who in here speaks Spanish? They translated for me, and then they went back and forth that way. I'm 100% for improv for everybody. Like, if you're a person, you can do improv. Now, it may not look the same as other people. Like you said, there are certain games that may not work for some people, and that's okay. There are certain times where games that required a lot of focus and a lot of attention, we just had to scrap them that day because it wasn't working for whatever reason. And just being open to that idea, open to that understanding, it really, there's no one game I can tell you works for everybody, because everybody's different. But verbal games that have a provided order really, really are very strong for the teams that I work with and the people that I work with. And even if they're deaf or they don't speak English, they can still be a verbal component, because they can use hands, they can use body gestures, they can use things like that. Even online is something I discovered, which was really fun. That no matter what the disability or the ability or whatever the person is working through, there's a way to get them to enjoy improv and to grow from it. And that's what I love about it. That's why I've loved this entire time, is learning all the different styles of improv, because I've I've learned comedy sports, one group mind, dramatic improv, musical improv at Second City, pretty much any improv that I can get into for free. I've taken stage combat courses with my wife, who's an opera singer. I've done intimacy training, so I have really deep understanding of, like, before a show we talk about like what you're comfortable with or what you're not comfortable with. Like, hey, don't touch my shoulders. I had a rough weekend. I pulled a muscle. Or don't pick me up no matter what, because I don't like that. Like, having those open conversations really help kind of open up that field for abilities and disabilities, because it's like, hey, I can't be on the left, or I can't be on the right because I can't see very well. Or if I'm not coming out there, just yell my name really loud, or just like drag me out there. I had one of my teens say that, like, if I'm not paying attention, just push me out. And okay, we'll happily do that for you, no problem.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I had that situation too when I was like in it was like 5B at IO West when I was taking it. I was so focused on being a good backline support
Right.
that I would just forget to ever like go into a scene, because I was so focused on like, when's the edit, like when's this, like what can I bring back and do these callbacks and all this stuff. And at one point, one of my teammates goes, "You need to like get in the scene," and I literally went, "Honestly, I'm not even paying attention. I don't have a problem. Just literally pull me out on stage." I was like, "Literally grab me by the hand and pull me out on stage. I will do a scene." I just am so focused on something else that I just forgot to like jump out and do a scene.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. I get so excited I want to be in every scene. I had to be like told by my teammates, hey, you don't have to be in every single scene. Like, take a step back and just watch for a little bit. And I
Yeah,
was like, oh,
that's funny. Which actually leads me into a question. I know that I just mentioned like a moment that I remember, but a lot of times when I do improv, I forget everything that I just did. And I by
every
just did, I mean like if I'm doing a Herald and you want to bring back my character, when we get to the second beat, you have to remind me who I was, because I will not remember like what happened even in the scene right before that beat. Like I just won't remember.
Mhm.
Um for a lot of reasons. But there are times when I do remember these aha moments that I've had, or like these incredible scenes that I've watched that were either so funny or so transcendent for whatever reason, that I won't forget these moments. Are there any scenes that you've either watched as a teacher, as a coach, or have performed in or watched as an audience, like a two-person scene, or any kind of scenes that you remember that you were just like, I remember this scene and I will never forget it?
One that I was personally in, our coach was helping us get out of our head, like with like creating new characters and creating like not just sticking with the same old characters over and over again and using something new. And he had me speak in a French accent, which I cannot do, and seduce someone, which I'm very like weirded out by. And it was like I had to do that for a little bit, and then I had to seduce an omelet, and it was the funniest thing. Like I was trying to like cook an omelet while trying to seduce it at the same time. It was so weird and awkward and funny, and I lost it so many times during that. And then I used that same character so many times after, because it's like, this guy's super creepy and weird. Where else would a super creepy weird guy fit? Yep,
Yeah.
creepy weird guy. And it was like a callback for our team. Or whenever like I did that, like people started cracking up on our team for no reason.
That's funny. I also don't like accents. I mean, I think I'm not great at them. I even did that when I teach kids. Like even recently, I was teaching kids, and I was like, "Okay, everyone, sit down." I just started talking in an accent. I don't know how that happened, and they all go, "What is that? British? Is it Irish? Is it Scottish? Is it Australian?" And I'm like, "Yes, it probably is. All of those, all of the above."
And
Because
speaking of teaching teenagers, my favorite teenager moment of all time, I was teaching them how to do walk-ons online, mind you. And I was like, okay, you don't have to come out exactly at the time you hear a name, like using like wait for it, come in at unexpected, do something cool. And they were two teens were doing a scene, and one of them did a walk-on on himself, and then the other one did a walk-on herself. And then they kept all four characters going for a solid minute and a half. Like, one of them had a conversation with himself in 2 different voices. It was so amazing to watch online. And I was afterwards, I was just like, what did you just do? I didn't tell you to do a walk-on yourself. And they were like, well, no one was coming on. We figured we'd just give it a shot. And I was like, that was truly amazing. 100% do that again.
That's great. I love that. On a quick side note, do you have anything you'd like to plug or pitch? Now is the time if you have anything.
Not currently, because I'm not performing right now, and my team is going on break for the next month or so. But I am going to be joining One Group Mind again in August. So come about like October, November, look out for shows on there. And there will be, I'm working on live streams for our group T-Prov, which is tea and improv, because that's how it started. They started coming into my classroom to drink tea. And then I was like, you can't just sit here and drink tea. Let's do something instead, and started doing improv on the side.
It's amazing.
Which was amazing. But yeah, nothing to plug right now.
Yeah, no worries. That's great. This will air at a time when that stuff will probably be back around. So it'll be great. Well, Kevin, thanks so much for joining me here on the Improv Summit. I have one final question for you, and that question is the reason that the Improv Summit exists. Now, a lot of people before pandemic and even now are like, Spencer, you take a lot of improv. Where should I take improv? And it's always a hard question for me to answer because I feel like there's not an answer to that question. There's a lot of answers to that question. And so if someone came up to you and said, where should I take improv? What would be one piece of advice you'd give to someone to help guide them on their improv journey?
Take improv wherever you can. Whatever is in your price range. If you can't really afford like a really prestigious, like professional class at Second City, go in for a one day class, give it a shot if you've never done it before. If you're like, I definitely want to do improv for sure, find an organization that fits what your idea of improv looks like, because improv looks different for a lot of people. Maybe you want to do short form games like Whose Line Is It Anyway, because that's your jam. Go for it. That's Comedy Sports. Maybe you want to do a long form show and do some musical numbers. Second City is your jam. Maybe you want to just do a whole bunch of shows all the time. You can try One Group Mind. I'm saying all the ones in Chicago. You may be somewhere else that has totally different organizations. Do your research, look up whatever you can find, and give it a shot, because improv is one of those things. It's like pizza. It's good pretty much everywhere, and it's really hard to do bad.
I love that. I love thinking of it as an analogy of a pizza. That's, and it's also even then like thinking about that, to add to that analogy, I can go to Hungry Howie's all day long and get a great pizza. There may be one time that the pizza is not as great, but I know that was just like, what's the term? Like a fluke in the system. Like it's always usually pretty good. And I mean, with improv, usually it's always pretty good. There may be one or two bad nights, but overall, it generally works. So I was just adding to that analogy because I thought it was great to think about.
And give it time, because as my first couple of improv teachers told me, you may not be very good at it for a while. You may really, really suck. And that's because you have to overcome anxiety. You have to overcome like that stage fright. You have to overcome that, what if I say something wrong? Oh my gosh, everyone's going to laugh at me. That's kind of the point.
I love it. Kevin, this has been great. I really appreciate you taking the time to answer some questions and talk about improv. But I did say that was the last question I had for you. But as always on this show, I can never tell the truth all the time. So I know I'll work on it. But in the meantime, I do have another question. And that question is, we've been talking a lot about improv. Would you like to do some improv?
Of course.
Let's do it.
I picked that one. Whatever that one is that you just started laughing at, I picked that one.
So those are the two in the chat. For location, the suggestion of a location.
A location where we do a scene is Bloodstream.
That was in the location suggestions.
You know what? Let's do it. Let's do Bloodstream.
All right, great. Let's do it. Would you like to initiate, or do you want me to initiate?
I can initiate.
Great.
All right, Doc. I'm warmed up. I'm ready to get shrunk down. Let's get into this vein.
Great. I do want to warn you that it's almost nearly impossible to put you in your own body, but we can certainly do it. It's just that there's a 99% chance that it will happen and 1% chance that
I'm
it
willing
won't
to
work.
give it a shot for science, Doc. Like, who else is gonna get this chance? I mean, come on. I'll
Oh,
just.
you are the only one that signed up for the volunteer study, so I guess no one else will get the chance.
Well, you're paying like $14,000 for this. Of course, I'm gonna sign up, and I get to
Yeah,
be the first one.
that's the thing about these volunteer studies. They always say it's a volunteer study with compensation. So is it really a volunteer study at that point? It's more like you're just getting paid to do something. So more, it's like an
Getting paid to do
employee.
something really weird, and that's right up my alley.
Okay, great. Well, would you like to go into the left arm or the right arm?
Let's do left. That way I can still use my right arm later for like throwing and writing and doing stuff like that because I am right-handed.
Great. So I will not be doing anything for you. You will be doing it all yourself, but I will walk you through what you need to do to get inside of your body.
Okay. So I'm going in through my left arm.
Correct.
And then,
but first you got to do the numbing. You want to make sure that you numb yourself because you're literally going to fold yourself inside of you.
it's so cool, Doc. Like this procedure sounds amazing.
I mean, it's going to be something, that's for sure. You're the first and only person that's offered to do this, so good luck.
All right, ready? All right, walk me through it step by step.
Yep.
When I'm actually like internal, will I still be able to talk to you? Do I have like earphones or something? Because I'm not wearing anything.
We never really thought about that, but here. Let's see. Here we go. Here. This is a pair of earphones that someone left in a junk drawer. So take those with you. We'll see. We can communicate if we really didn't get that far in this. I'm not gonna lie. This is a very trial study, very basic trial study.
Okay. Making sure the antennas are up and ready to go. All right.
Sure, no guarantees that anything's going to come out of there. But what you can do is put that numbing lotion on. The whole body. Great. Looks like that's enough. Now what you're going to do is you're going to snap your fingers. On the count of 3, you're going to snap your fingers, and you should be inside of your bloodstream.
Are you counting or mine?
You count.
1, 2, 3. Doc, can you hear me?
Yeah, I actually can hear you.
I'm seeing all kinds of like life preserver things that are like beet red. There's a blue one and a white one. What the heck is all this?
Well, there's a red blood cell, a white blood cell. The blue thing probably also is a thing you need in your body. So just don't worry about those. They're just cells.
All right, I'm gonna hop on one and see how fast it can go.
Just be aware that the red will go faster than the white.
Really? All right, I'm gonna hop on the red one. All right. Okay. Whoa! Shoot, Doc, this thing's going so fast. Oh my God, I can't slow down. What do I do? What do I do?
Yeah, I'd be really careful. I'd maybe think about that time Miss Frizzle took the kids inside the body on the Magic School Bus, and like, what would Ralphie do?
I missed that episode. That was like, I missed that one because I had to stay home from school. It was terrible.
That was such a great episode. But my favorite one, and I don't remember what it is. I think it was something with rainbows, where it was like a pinball machine or something, and they lit up each of the colors of the rainbow. I just remember this, and I really loved it. Maybe it was the Magic School Bus inside a rainbow.
I'm just gonna jump off, Doc.
Oh.
All right, I gotta catch my breath. I'm surrounded by boogers. I have no idea how I ended up in the nose.
Well, if you just sneeze, you can sneeze yourself back out if you want.
Really? Like if I sneeze and I'll pop out and then I'll be me again?
Yeah, you should be, if the trial goes well.
I gotta say, Doc, that was awesome.
And scene. All right, thanks everybody so much for joining us here on the Improv Summit. I'm Spencer, that's Kevin. See you next time. Bye.
Okay, bye.